Hey everyone. So today we are gathered here for the weekly tech talk, and today's topic is authentication with Azure API management. I hope everyone's here and everyone can hear me clearly. If not, just please interrupt and let Tarindu or myself know. And also um while doing the tech talk, also if you have any questions, please. Hey, sorry, I'm hearing some noise. Someone has muted their mic. So even though you have mics muted, if you have any questions or if you want to do any interruption to ask something or to point out something, please go ahead and remember to unmute and then just speak. It's fine. And with this tech talk, I'm trying to explore some ideas that we can use in our actual projects, probably as improvements to existing projects as well as a way to handle our future projects also. So time to time, I might be taking examples in our current projects and how we did things in the past and how we can change things. Um, so the title is Authentication with Azure API Management. So this is about how do this is sort of a tech talk about how do we currently handle authentication in our most of our GVO projects, and how we can do follow a different approach and make things better in certain viewpoints. So for that, I took the API management as a tool to improve the way we do our authentication. And I also took some experiences that we had with the Agile Like You project as well. So we followed the approaches I'm discussing in this tech talk. Because of that, I got some confidence that we could use this same principle in our other projects, possibly in future projects. Okay, so with that being said, I'll start the presentation. So here I want to look at how a traditional application that we do. So we have a browser or a mobile app as the client, and we would traditionally expose some web API, REST API, and as the most popular technology in our company, we use ASP.NET Web API. And we might connect to some sort of database or multiple databases. I mean, the backend storage might get complicated with the project, but the overall architecture, I think almost in every project that we do, it's almost similar like this, right? Um, Now, the requests that are coming from the client side flows through the web API, and it will go to the database and fetch the data, right? But when the requests are flowing through the web API, all the requests will be subjected to some sort of screening. So there's some thin layer in the web API which does this screening. I'm just giving some hints to you. Can anyone unmute and tell what we would call this layer in ASP.NET? Anyone? So all the requests has to be subjected to some sort of validation or sort of like a gatekeeper. We do use some technologies that are available in ASP.NET, and I'm talking about that particular technology or piece of component in ASP.NET that we use. We use it quite a lot in all of our projects. Can anyone tell me what that is? Anyone? I'm pretty surprised that people are silent.
Praveen, is this the identity related stuff which you're talking about?
Yeah, it is. Actually, you gave two answers in one. So do you know the term middleware? middleware? Anyone?
Yeah, Ravi, yeah.
I think, yeah, okay. I think that one, most people would be familiar with that term. And Chandula's answer was also correct. But generically speaking, we use authentication middleware, right? And there are a lot of different types of middlewares in ASP.NET. We happen to use, most of the time we only use the authentication middleware in ASP.NET, and that happens to be Chandula's answer, which is ASP.NET Identity. So what does this authentication middleware do? I mean, if you remember your project's startup.cs, we normally configure the middleware in startup.cs. We might say cookie authentication, use cookie authentication, or use JWT bearer token authentication. I think people who have configured projects when during the initiation phase would be familiar with it, but some other people might not be familiar with these terms. Now, this is like a gate within the ASP.NET Web API, which takes care of issuing the authentication tokens and validating the incoming tokens. So as the first step, user or the client would perform some sort of sign-in process, login process, where the authentication middleware will issue the token back to the client, right? So for the subsequent request, that very same token will get attached to all the subsequent requests, and this authentication middleware will validate the token that must be present in every request, right? If the token is not there, the middleware will reject the request. So the request will not go beyond this beyond the orange area. So that's the job of the middleware, right? So we, as Chandula said, we do use ASP.NET Identity as our framework of choice for this authentication middleware. And can anyone tell me, is this the only place where we use ASP.NET Identity? Is it only for this ASP.NET middleware section? How about the database? Can anyone tell me how do we use the ASP.NET Identity in our database? Yes, someone else. I know there are people who know the answer.
Windows authentication is one way, right? When we enable Windows authentication in SQL Server, so once the application is being, the request is being authenticated from the application layer, so that the same. I think.
Yeah, I think you are talking about a different thing. Yes, I think I understand what you mean with the Windows authentication for the SQL Server connection, but do we use the ASP.NET Identity for that? I mean, ASP.NET Identity.
Ravin, are you talking about the user management using Identity?
Sorry?
User management using Identity.
Yes. I think all the people will remember when I say this. So basically ASP.NET Identity introduces the tables in your database, right? So Cosmos DB people will remember we use a special library for to handle the ASP.NET Identity user records, role records in our Cosmos DB database, and also the SQL Server also. ASP.NET Identity introduces these user tables, roles tables, and so on. So almost all of our projects follow this mechanism. Chamil, is that what you mentioned as user management?
Yes, identity user tables and all.
Exactly. So this authentication middleware sort of works in conjunction with identity tables, right? Because it's all coming from the ASP.NET Identity stack. It's like provided by the same vendor, Microsoft. So they provide features the middleware features, they also provide the database features as well. So it's all like one big package, right? So our users, ASP.NET Identity users, usernames, passwords, email, password lockout policies, two-factor authentication kind of details, they are all kept within our database along with our business data. So I think with this, everyone might remind themselves this is the way we do most of our projects, and there's nothing wrong with it, and it works pretty well. Now, I want you to move your attention to microservices or projects that can have multiple APIs. What would we do in this case? Let's say so here you had one API, you were able to integrate the authentication middleware, ASP.NET Identity into the web API, and also this DB also, because it's just one API, one DB, no harm done. Now here, what can you do? Can anyone give any ideas? Now, Chamil mentioned using user management, using ASP.NET Identity. Where would we do the user management with ASP.NET Identity in this kind of a scenario?
I think it would be a different authentication service to represent all these in behalf of all these applications.
Exactly. Yeah. Cool. I think you are completing my presentation, so that's really good. So if we do it this way, I'm pretty sure all of you might be able to see the issues associated with this approach. Because on one hand, the authentication middleware is duplicated, right? You have to duplicate this middleware in all of the web APIs. And how do where should they access the users? Does the users live in all three databases? Or else would all three APIs will need to communicate with whatever somewhere the users are stored and issue the tokens? So many questions arise. So there's, in a nutshell, there is duplication, and when you introduce more and more web APIs, it's not good for your architecture. It's not scalable, right? Okay. So this is what Hiran mentioned. We basically take out this authentication middleware, separate it out, and move to a separate service. That separate service is responsible for issuing the token to the client. Right?
Ravin, sorry to interrupt. Now here we have separate services, right, and separate databases. Most of the time, I have seen in the projects that we did in GBO and currently doing, we have most of the time we share the database, but with different services.
Yes.
Yeah.
So these are not. So I think you must be talking about business services, right? Service classes. So here I am looking into more like completely separate microservice APIs, right?
Okay.
And even so, even if we did share the one big database for all three APIs, still this kind of authentication service might prove useful. Because you do not have to duplicate that authentication stack in all three APIs, even though it's just one database. Because even if it's one database, because you have multiple APIs, still you will have to duplicate this authentication stack or the middleware stack. Token issuing and validation, you will have to duplicate. And I think to give another answer to Hiran's question, I think Droppoint uses that pattern as far as I can remember. They do have multiple APIs for different purposes. Some APIs used by third parties, some APIs are used by their UI portal. So they have different APIs, but I think they do have one big database or a couple of big databases. I think Chamik and Priyadarshan can correct me if I'm wrong. So in such a scenario also something like this could be useful, But as the ultimate goal, what we are aiming for future GVO projects is this full microservices architecture where even the databases are separated out. We have a couple of projects already like that, and PEMS is moving towards that. So PEMS also previously had one big API and one big database, and now we are separating things out. So this would, the benefits of this architecture would really become visible when you do that full microservices architecture, which I think is the way to go in the future. So this authentication service is the one which takes care of issuing the token to the client, right? Now, how about token validation? Now, is there any point for the authentication service to be performing the validations? Because what do you need to validate? You need to validate these incoming requests, right? You need to validate any incoming requests for all three APIs. So whatever that has to be validated, they have to be watching these requests, right? Now these requests do not come through the authentication service. Authentication service is only responsibilities for issuing the authorization tokens to the client. Mainly, most of the time this is only handling things like sign-in call or token issuing call. Okay, after the token is issued, this guy's job is mostly over. Then what do? One thing to do is, again, we can install some token validator inside each of the APIs. But here also, again, we are coming back to that previous duplication problems. When you have multiple APIs, it becomes difficult to configure all of these APIs when you make changes to your authentication stack. So this one also, we can make it common by moving it to a separate layer where through that layer all the requests will flow. Okay, it's through this token validation layer that all the requests will flow to all of these APIs behind it. So this way, now we have separated out all the authentication logics into these two different entities called authentication service and token validator. So now I'm going to move into some actual little bit implementation details, but this is the overall architecture we are aiming for. Does anyone have any questions so far? Anything?
How to validate? Sorry, go on.
Sorry, Hiran, you go on.
Okay,
Yeah, Hiran, go ahead. Hiran, go ahead.
Okay, about the token validator, I mean, so is it going to be in, let's say, forget about a tool like API management. In that case, are we going to duplicate this validator in each API? Or is it this our token validator? Are you talking about a separate component?
Separate component, separate, you can call it as like a separate service. I mean, you might be able to guess. So in this tech talk, this token validator will be the API management instance, just one instance. So all the requests are flowing through this token validator single component. It's all, you can think of it like a router.
Okay, all right.
So the token validator does not belong to any of these three APIs. These APIs sit behind the token validator.
So we are not going to implement any custom logics to, now for example, if you have open, like Google authentication or Microsoft authentication, so you have to validate basically the token that you, received by the client. So in that case, your application have to perform that. So here, your application is not performing anything, but the token validator does. Is that correct?
Exactly. So that's exactly the benefit I want to talk in this tech talk. So that's the exact point I'm trying to make. So these your web APIs become very dumb, insecure APIs. So you do not handle security in your web APIs. You only worry about your business APIs. That's it. Even though I say this, practically speaking, you might handle some things related to claims-based security, maybe returning 401 from the API if the incoming request does not have specific permission claim, that could be part of your business security domain, but the technical security domain, it's completely isolated from your web APIs. And I think Chandula was also going to ask a question.
My question was answered, Ravi.
Oh, okay, good. Then I will move on. So this is sort of like the abstract box diagram, architecture diagram. Now let's focus on the authentication service. Now Hiran gave the answer to this as well. So as the authentication service, we could actually use these off-the-shelf or ready-made authentication services like Microsoft accounts, Google login, Facebook login, Twitter, LinkedIn, you name it. There are tons of authentication providers in the world, widely well-known authentication providers. We could use any of them as our authentication service. So if we go down this path, we do not write any code to manage this authentication service. We simply connect to a ready-made authentication service and get the token, right? Although there are some administrative configuration work that we have to do in order to integrate these third-party services into our application, we won't have to write any logic, security logic, two-factor, password expiration, nothing, because they are all managed by these services inside them, right? Or some projects might not be happy with connecting to these existing open or public authentication services. Some people would want to come up with their own custom provider. Okay. Now, in the case of Agile-IQ, the product owner wanted to go with Microsoft authentication, and in the future, the product owner has plans to integrate Google and Facebook also. So for that applications domain, the product owner was happy to go with public offerings, public services. I think if we can do that, it's a big win for the project in terms of development effort and future maintenance effort. But some projects might have probably stringent security requirements. Now, for example, for people who has worked in the project might know, for example, projects like Bonafide, even Taurus, even PEMS, as they stand now, they require some internal super admin sort of user to create these user accounts in the system, and then only that other user can log in. So you sort of want to manage the users in a strict manner. But even in those cases, we might be able to consider how about using organizational Microsoft Active Directory and so on. But if we do really want to manage our own users, passwords, and that also means we'll have to manage the two-factor authentication, security policies, protecting the user's personal data, everything we'll have to do manually ourselves. But we can do that if we want. So that means we have to have our own users database to serve this custom authentication service provider. Okay. So this also means we have to do the hosting. We have to host that service provider server, so the users' websites and the mobile apps can connect to this authentication service and get the token, right? One great standard that has come up in the world is OAuth. So because of this OAuth standard, nowadays it has become possible for many of these authorization providers to communicate in the same protocol, using the same protocol. Now, probably 20, 30 years ago, maybe if people came up with something like this, Microsoft would use their own protocol, Google would use their own proprietary protocol. Then there's no really real benefit of going with this kind of a separate authentication service, because you have to implement custom integration work for every single service provider. But because nowadays everyone uses this OAuth protocol, if you know how to integrate Microsoft accounts, you already know how to integrate Google or Facebook. Even your custom provider would also confirm to the same OAuth protocol. So your mobile apps and client apps can get the tokens in the same manner, right? So this will make things significantly easy if you go with OAuth, and nowadays it's a standard choice for every project. So due to that reason, all these popular authentication providers exposes OAuth token endpoints for people to use. And if we implemented our own custom provider would also expose the OAuth token endpoint. Right? Now I move to the token validator. So this is where the topic of this presentation comes in, is the Azure API management. So using Azure API management, we can very easily, just with some simple XML configuration, we can simply get the token validator up and running. So API management will act as the gatekeeper. So if this OAuth token is invalid, expired, or due to some reason it's unauthenticated, it will not pass through the request. So this is performing exactly the same thing as that previous ASP.NET middleware, but now we have moved that out and we have offloaded that work to Azure API management without writing any code. So this is, yeah. So now if you think about it, there's another byproduct that we might be able to get as a benefit due to this approach. Now, as I explained to Hiran earlier, our web APIs now no longer has to deal with any of this authorization, authentication kind of work, Google authentication, nothing. So we have removed the need of ASP.NET middleware. Because of the removal of middleware, now if we wanted, we could go full scale with Azure Functions HTTP trigger instead of ASP.NET Web API. Now in the past, by default, we were anyway, like when we wanted to do API for a new project, we would just go to Visual Studio, right click, create new project, choose the ASP.NET project template and create a template. We don't even ask questions. We don't even think about it. But now the unique feature which we actually needed from the ASP.NET Web API is now we no longer need it, which is that middleware. Because Azure Functions also provide the same REST API development functionality, we could seriously consider Azure Functions as an alternative to Web APIs. And now that Microsoft has introduced this dependency injection, everything to Azure Functions, the choice becomes even more easier. In the past, Azure Functions were not that good compared to Web API for API work, but now I think it's actually a serious contender. And in fact, with Agile-IQ, we only have an Azure Function project for that primary business API. But you can't, still it's not 100% equivalent to Web API. Some convenience features that Web API offers are missing in Azure Functions, but it's not up to the point that you will miss it a great deal. Okay, I won't go into detail on that in this tech talk, but now when we start a new project in the future, I will think about whether we will use a Azure Function or ASP.NET for the Web API. At least we have that freedom of choice because we have removed all the authentication work into API management and this authentication service. All right. Anyone have any questions?
Yes, right. One question. So,
yeah.
What if one web API needs to communicate with another one within the token validator? I mean, in this image, let's say the first web API needs to connect with the second one.
Yes.
Do we still go through the token validator?
No. So actually, API management is flexible enough. So you can, it's like gatekeeping. You can protect this API and this API with the token validator, but not this API. I mean, these are API management configuration stuff. or you could completely take the API management out of one API and only expose these other two. It's up to you. I mean, you can configure your hosting architecture in any way you want. So you can protect only the APIs you want via API management. You have that flexibility.
I think, Praveen, my question is, when one web API processes its request, it needs to communicate with the second web API within the same application.
Right. So this doesn't prevent you from doing that. You could. I mean, although it's not recommended in the microservices architecture, if you wanted, you could. Now, the way we are going with this is these web APIs sort of become internal services. They are actually not exposed to outside internet. Okay. As internal services, they could do whatever the hell they want with themselves, communicating between each other. I mean, you could even communicate with someone else's database also. It's all internal implementation details. I mean, for all we know, all three APIs might be using a shared database, or they could be communicating between each other. So for internal communication, you don't need to go through the API management. So the API management is only there to act as a barrier between your internal APIs and the outside world.
Okay.
Okay, cool. Now let's move on. So this is again, to make things clear, this is the final architecture, like the box architecture. We could use the same architecture for single API projects, or we could use the same architecture without any changes to microservices projects. Okay. And with this microservices, it becomes the benefits become even more apparent, because if you needed to do if you need to introduce another microservice and microservice API, it's just a matter of doing that API and plugging it to API management. You do not have to worry about authentication, nothing, because you have already established that gateway infrastructure. It doesn't matter whether it's 3 APIs or 10 APIs. Okay, you can simply plug in new APIs into API management. Okay, and we use OAuth as our standard authentication protocol. Okay. Now let me show you some Azure portal and show you some how we can do these things in API management. I'm not going to do any coding or set up a project and show you because I mean, you won't remember it anyway. I mean, I just want to show you that this thing is possible and how easy it could be. And I know that Chandula also did the tech talk regarding API management separately in the past. So I'm not going to explain about API management itself. So in this screen we can, so I have created some API management instance. And I also have created the Azure function project with a simple get time function. So this is like HTTP trigger function. Let me, so this is the direct function URL. It's like you are directly this is equivalent to directly calling a API, web API, and getting the response. So you can see every time I call it, it's simply returning me the current timestamp of the server. Okay. Now let's protect this API with API management. So here I'm using the function app integration. So Azure API management, because it's all done by Microsoft, they like to make things very easy for people like us. So if you have a Swagger definition, you could import this, but with the Azure function app, you don't even need Swagger definition also. Because of this HTTP trigger, API management is anyway capable of reading your function definitions even without a Swagger document. So Microsoft has made it very easy. I just have to browse the function app and it will automatically detect the functions, individual HTTP functions that are available in it, and I can select it and import. Okay. So this is the new URL my Azure function API is going to get. Okay. I'll copy this one as well. This was the original URL. This is the URL I'm going to get via Azure API management. Okay, I'm going to create it. I think PEMS team is already familiar with this stuff. They are already using API management. Right, so you can see now the API management has detected this get time function. Now, if I open up two browser windows, so from the top one, I will access it. Okay. So now you can see, so it's another example of how API management works. So it's all about protecting your API. So by default also, it protects your API. So you can see if I directly access it, I can get the time. But if I access the same API via API management, it's returning 401. Now you might wonder what's the use of this? Anyone can access this directly. But the subsequent steps would involve closing the external doors for this API. So you could only access it via the API management. I won't go into those configuration details, but you can just do them in Azure portal. There's IP whitelisting, or you could even use Azure function security keys. So there are multiple ways you can do it. So in a real production environment, you would not be able to access your internal APIs like this. Okay. For this tech talk, I won't go into that area. So now let's get rid of this problem. So it's just a default setting that API management enables. So it requires a subscription key. Okay. Okay, now you can see it's succeeding. So this Ravin API management.azure API. So that's via the API management. This is via the direct call. Okay. Now both are functioning. Now, in order to link up the API management with any OAuth authentication service, all we need to provide is this configuration section in API management. So API management has this concept called policies. It's sort of like ASP.NET middleware, but not in C# code, in XML. So the policies can be used to describe what are the validations or processing that every incoming request should be subjected to, right? So I'll just copy this. I mean, there are extensive documentation on how to configure these policies. It's the major feature in API management. And it falls into the Azure administration category. You would not normally get involved with this stuff in regular development, because once you set it up, it's set up. That's it. You can forget about it. So this is where you configure the policies. So you can see there's this validate JWT policy. So basically here what I'm saying is only allow the request if a valid Microsoft token is present. Otherwise return 401. Okay. So if I save this policy, it might take few seconds for the change to take effect. Okay. Now you can see it's returning invalid grant, because obviously my browser request does not have a valid Microsoft token. Okay. And I'm also not going to show how to acquire a Microsoft token and how to send it. It's outside the scope of this tech talk, and you can do it. So who would do that? Not your API, your browser or the mobile app would do that. It's a responsibility. If I go back to the presentation, did I minimize it? Okay. So it's this client which is responsible for acquiring a token with the authentication service. Okay. So this client will associate that token with every request, right? and it's the API management will use this policy to validate that token. Simple as that. So that's that. So in AgileIQ, this is the flow we are using. And just to show you what API management can do for you. So this is an example configuration that we have in the AgileIQ project. So in addition, so this area is the one what we use for validating the token and returning 401. And one cool thing is, if you want to plug in more providers, Google, Facebook, or even your custom provider, you can add multiple sections like this. I haven't personally tried this out, but they say it's supported. So the token could be from Google or Microsoft or Facebook. If your token matches with any of these OpenID config rules, it would allow. Okay, so it makes it very, very easy. Now, as far as AgileIQ goes, we know in the product backlog, there are future requirements for integrating Google and Facebook, but we don't expect that to take a lot of effort because it would be just a matter of adding some configurations here. But some effort will be required to integrate the Google login and Facebook login to the mobile app. Okay, so I mean, in AgileIQ we do have a mobile app. Some we would have to find Google Auth UI library and plug into the mobile app. So there's some work there, but on the back end, you don't make a single code line change into your C# API.
Ravin, first question. Now here, how does the API management validates the token? Now let's say a client can say that that this is a valid token. So what you configured here as a policy, inbound policy, and this kind of XML configuration. But is there any shared key, like for the Microsoft account that that you are validating against? How do you know whether this is a valid token from the API management perspective?
Valid. So because they all follow this, the token has to be the OAuth token. So the API management, this validate JWT, it'll decode the token and actually analyze the details contained within that OAuth token. All the OAuth tokens issued by common service providers follow the same format. I think if you can remember Akhila's Tech Talk last week, he showed some JWT tokens. There are a lot of claims in it, expirations and so on. So this would simply decode that token and validate the expirations and validate whether it confirms to this particular config. So for example, this would only validate tokens in the Microsoft common endpoint. Basically, they would only validate public Microsoft accounts. If your token is coming from, let's say, enterprise Microsoft work account, this will fail. So it's all following the OAuth protocol. But let's say you want to validate in your app. API management will not know whether this particular user is authorized to use your application or not. Okay, that becomes part of your application. So that is why we have these other sections. So what we do here is we extract the sort of like the user OAuth user ID from the token and send it as a plain text header into the API. So using these plain text headers, our API can do any business validations, whether this particular user, what is the role for that user, or whether that user is registered in our system in the first place, because these are public Microsoft accounts. Anyone can have Microsoft accounts. So it's up to us to check whether this particular Microsoft account ID can use particular business features in our application. That part falls to us.
Now let's say, Ravin, now you're talking about the claims where the authorization part, now authentication is done from the API management, right? So which basically received a valid token, right? I assume like that. So thereafter, your application still cannot, let all the users access all the endpoints. Some, users might not have the required permission. For example, administrative permissions to access certain endpoints. So in that case, claims are important, right? Does it now in ASP.NET Core? You remember we have this authorized tag, and you define the policies, right? So can we map that mechanism with with the API management?
Yes. So if your token has particular claims, I mean, I didn't want to show it. So can you see this required claims section?
Yes, Ravin, yeah.
So this area can be used to specify if the token needs to be validated, that particular token has to contain this particular value in this claim.
Okay.
So if this doesn't fulfill, it will not pass. This will also work for some scenarios, but not for every scenario. All right. Now, what you can do in your API is to get, let's say, if you are talking about very custom permission requirements, let's say business feature permissions, whether this particular user has permission for this feature but not for this feature, then you will have to do some custom work in your business API to maybe return 401 if this particular user does not have particular role permissions. And in the case of Microsoft accounts, now Microsoft accounts will not keep your custom claims, right? Microsoft account keeps all the standard claims, first name, last name, email, user profile ID, things like that. So if you had your custom provider, if this provider was a custom provider, then most probably whatever this token will already have all the claims, like the claims you have in Taurus. But we have very custom claims, right? Tenant ID, permission keys. So if you go with the custom provider, you can decode all these claims from the token and pass them as plain text HTTP headers. So probably in your API user context resolver middleware, what do you call that? Not the middleware. So user context resolver. What you would do is read those HTTP headers and do your custom authentication logic, authorization logic.
Does it so the claims get mapped to the request header parameters,
header.
right?
I mean, you can decide anyway. But what we have done is, I think most popular way is decode the token and put these interested values into custom HTTP headers. So for example, our backend API is interested in this sub claim and the ISS claim. ISS means the issuer. We simply store it with the user record. So we simply decode them and populate them into this X claim sub and X claim ISS headers. And this is application specific. Okay, this area is application specific.
Ravi,
yes.
So can't you put individual policies for individual APIs, basically?
We can. Okay. Now, now you can go up to extreme also. You could deploy individual policies for get time only. I mean, let's say there are 10 methods. You can put 10 policies for 10 methods if you wanted. Okay. But unfortunately, then you have to do all 10 individually. I mean, there's no inheritance hierarchy in API management.
Okay, so the Hiran's question, can there be a solution like that? So if you have a custom claim,
yes,
so if you have a custom claim provider from the API management, you can. Okay,
definitely you could do that. That's a creative approach, but maybe practically if you try to do that, you might find it very cumbersome because if you have like 20-30 APIs, you would have to duplicate this big section, but only with very minor value changes, right? So this entire section you might have to duplicate, but only a small value you might be changing per method. Yes, you could do that without writing a single line of code, but I believe in terms of administrative effort, it might become too cumbersome for a big project. So they might decide maybe it's easier for them to do it in C#. Anyway, up to you. It's all up to you. And if you have multiple parent APIs, then also you can differentiate policies between different APIs. For example, for Hiran, for cabinet API, you could have one policy. for the middleware, your Exchange API, you could have another policy. Or if you wanted, you could go with individual policies per method, like get provision cabinet, one policy. Download software update, one policy. You could go up to that level. Okay.
Robin, how about cookies? Now, most of the browsers are using cookies. So now,
Yeah.
let's say your authentication service, let's say custom authentication provider, and it issues cookies. Now, the API management, in order to validate the cookie, you remember that you have to have the same machine keys because it encrypts the cookie using the machine key.
No, that's the thing. So that is because your cookie issuer did not follow the OAuth protocol. Now,
Okay.
it's a custom identity specific custom encryption decryption. Okay. Now, if
Okay.
you use the OAuth token, if you could issue the OAuth token inside the cookie, okay, then you could use this validate JWT section because this only supports OAuth. Okay, you have to confirm to that OAuth standard, but I haven't actually tried with cookie because it currently watches the authorization header. But I saw there are other features in policies where you could decode the cookie and populate the HTTP header. So there are other policies like this. These are like building blocks, like a pipeline building blocks. You could put up another pipeline before this to read the cookie header and populate to the authorization header. But I actually haven't tried this, so not sure whether it will work. So these kinds of transformation policies are available in API management. I personally haven't tried that. So in AgileIQ, we are completely using HTTP headers, but you will be completely helpless if you use some custom non-OAuth token mechanism.
Okay, okay, yeah. I think that makes sense. So that OAuth is one of a protocol that supported by the API management, right?
Yes. Yes.
So is that the only protocol it supports? So
I think it supports this other protocol like SAML. There's another thing called SAML, Security Access Markup Language something. So Microsoft Active Directory also supports SAML, SAML. I think they could support that SAML as well. But nowadays, if you develop application, you would just go with OAuth. You would not think about any other protocols. So I also haven't looked at what are the other protocols that API management supports. Probably it's only OAuth because 99% of the time people would use OAuth. But I know it will not support this identity specific tokens at all. Okay.
Okay.
But there's another thing, another flexibility offered by API management. Even though this is XML, this is actually C#. See this context get value or default. This is actually C#. Okay, so you can mix C# in XML. So if you wanted, you could write complicated custom logic. Okay, then it would become very complicated. I don't know whether there are any limitations to that also. Okay, this is actually just plain old C#. So you could write custom logic here. All right, I'll move on. Nearing the end of the presentation. So as a side note, I wanted to mention what Ruani and Tilanka did with AgileIQ. So they have even built, because AgileIQ does this Microsoft authentication, acquire the token and send to our backend API via API management. So that means the API automation scripts also needs to support this Microsoft token acquisition and refresh token, all this OAuth stuff, right? So they have come up with a very neat, successfully working script set. So I think in the future we could use this in other projects as it is. So this is actually a example screen of acquiring the Microsoft token, refreshing and setting the postman environment variables. So this is mostly useful for QAs, but we had to think about it in AgileIQ because we use Microsoft authentication. And the good thing with OAuth is if we also introduce Google or Facebook, none of this logic will change. probably only this token URL and the client ID and the scope. Probably only these three variable values will change for Google or Facebook. That's the beauty of OAuth. Okay, because they all, and even if you use custom OAuth provider, still you would need these three variables. That's it. And yeah, this is how you acquire the Postman or token with Postman. So Ruven uses this regularly, and so far they have had no issues. I mean, initially to set up, we had to learn how to do it, but now it's all working. That knowledge is there. We could use it in other projects now. Okay, so I have come to the summary. I think okay, good timing. It's 4 o'clock. So the key takeaways are in the future, for future GVO projects, I'm thinking we need to isolate the authentication service from application APIs, from our business application APIs. So we could use third-party OAuth providers like Microsoft or Google, or we could build our own custom provider with this thing called Identity Server, which is a .NET project. I think it could be a separate tech talk. I'm not sure whether we have even done a tech talk on this. So it's a separate area. Okay. So this is you would use Identity Server to build custom OAuth compatible authentication servers. Simple as that. And we need to isolate token validation part from our application APIs using API management. And then, because we have done these two above, we could use Azure Functions also instead of ASP.NET to host our web APIs. One major benefit we could get is the price, because Azure Functions is auto scale, massively scalable for dirt cheap cost if you go with consumption plan. So this is all we have in Agile Library. You have two environments, production environment and QA environment. Like the total cost of both environments is less than $20 per month, because most of the cost goes for the SQL databases. I mean, our system is not that large scale yet, but this Azure Functions pricing will forever stay the same because we are using consumption plan. Same architecture can be applied for single API or multi-API projects. I said multi-API here. There could be multi-API projects like Droppoint, or there could be multi-API microservices projects like probably PEMS or DGR, probably PEMS in the future. Okay, so it's the same architecture we can apply. All right, so that's what I wanted to cover with the tech talk. If you have any final questions, we can answer them and wrap up. And don't worry, I mean, if it's only a few minutes after 4, so don't worry, don't hesitate to ask questions because we have run out of time. It's okay. Any questions?
Ravin, I have one question. So with your project, AgileIQ, do you guys have a dedicated API management resource for the project, or is it a shared one?
No, we do have one API management instance per environment. So the good thing with Microsoft is for API management also they have consumption plan. So I know this Duncan Solutions is using the premium expensive one because they have separate production security requirements with virtual networks and everything. AgileIQ, we don't have such extreme requirements. So we could go with API management consumption plan. Again, it follows a similar pricing like Azure Functions consumption plan. Like it's only few cents. It costs only few cents per month, few cents dollars per month. So it's cheap. So we could create instance per resource group, per environment. And one thing I almost forgot to mention. So Hiran would understand the pain of this very clearly, and probably Chandula would also. Hiran, do you remember that in Stream Analytics, in the past, we were coding in the Azure portal text window. If you wanted to make a change, we had to go to Azure portal and change it, right?
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah.
Okay. So in later you found out you could plug in the source code repo to it.
Yes.
Streamlink, it was possible. So in API management also, I think Chandula would realize this pain point. So every time you update your API, you would have to go in and re-import the updates, API updates to here. Otherwise, the new API endpoints will not appear here. Okay. I think the PEMS team is currently doing this manually unless my knowledge is outdated. I saw that they have this source control integration repository. So you could actually save the complete API management configuration into a Git repo. So they are creating some XML files to describe the API import definitions and policies and everything. So it's just a matter of making a commit to that source code. So you could update your API management in sync with the rest of your source code. I haven't personally used it, but I only noticed it when I was looking through very recently. So for Agile IQ also, we are not using this currently, but I think in the future we could. Because then this Azure manual, go into the Azure portal after every release and clicking this import button and manually going through the wizard, you don't have to do that anymore if you go down that path. So that's one interesting thing Microsoft has added. I think PEMS team would heavily benefit from that.
Ravin, that means you can integrate the release pipeline.
I think so. I think so. Yes. Yes. I think so. So it's all in sync. I mean, but one thing is, as I saw, it's using a separate Git repo. It's giving its own repo to you. You have to do a commit to that repo. So I think probably you can integrate with your build or release pipeline to make a Git push or something. But the main point is you can automate it. It might not be as simple as what we currently do in our pipelines, but I'm sure you can automate it if you learned how it works. I mean, they have introduced it so that people can automate it.
Ravin, so in this API management, there is a section called authentication or something, right?
Yes, Microsoft. All right, this one?
Yes. Yeah.
All right. So this is more additional features in API management. So we could use these kinds of things as well. So if you go down this path, this might mostly be useful for website projects. So when the website connects to API management, and if API management realizes the request does not have a proper token, API management itself will redirect the user to the Microsoft login and get the token from Microsoft login, and I mean he integrates completely with that user authorization flow. I don't think this is much useful for mobile apps. It could be useful for websites, but I haven't personally used it. I mean, they have a lot more features. I only showed very little. I only showed what I know. Okay, I did not show features that I haven't used or don't know about. So, but I know they have these features like this. You could even integrate directly integrate OAuth endpoint via the UI with this approach.
Ravin, I think you exit from the API management UI.
Sorry.
In the resource.
Yes, I think you are correct. So if I go add here, so this is complete. You can even add your custom authorization provider also.
So this is not the authorization service, that separate service which was mentioned.
Yes, basically we need to provide details for that separate authorization service. It could be Microsoft service, it could be Google service, or it could be your custom service. So because it's OAuth protocol, it's all the same information. This token endpoint URL, authorization endpoint URL. I haven't gone down this path. I mean, we haven't needed it so far. It's usually this redirection flow is usually handled by your React application or Angular application or the mobile apps. So that's why I haven't looked at this. But there are features in API management. I mean, there are much more features which is completely outside the scope of this tech talk. But I think with time, once we start using it, I think our developers will discover the features that they can use. Okay, any other questions, guys? Sorry, Chandula, I mean, did I answer your question?
Yeah.
Any other questions, guys? All right, I think we can wrap up then. Thanks for asking the questions and making any clarifications, because when you ask questions, then it might help some other people who did not even think of asking questions. So it raises some discussion points. So it's really good that you guys asked questions. Thanks for that. And thanks for listening, guys. Hope you learned something out of this.